Hey guys, here's how I make sure to order the correct parts the first time. Now I've decided to continue on with my Alfine 8 conversion on my friend's bike Friday, and my next step is to identify and order all the parts. As I went through this, I realized that it's very easy to make a mistake. Now I don't want to delay the project, and I don't want to doom the build with incorrect components. So I took my time, I carefully analyzed my exact needs, and it turned out to be much more time consuming and detailed than I had originally anticipated. With that said, I think it will be helpful for those of you who may be considering an Alfine 8 conversion to see what I went through to make sure that I ordered exactly the right parts the first time. I'm going to show you the information and documents that guided me, so let's get into it. So here's a list showing the parts I need, basically a hub, shifter, chain, a tensioner, small parts kit, a cog, and a chainring. Now on the determination as to which hub, there's another video where I talk about some of the issues I went into with the other hub, but ultimately decided that an S7001-8 would be the appropriate hub, and the parameters of that hub were based on the measurements of the bike or personal preference. So once I got the hub, then you need to decide on the shifter, and in this particular case, I decided that we were not going to go with an electronic shifter. Staying with manual, there are basically 4 choices. There are 2 Shimano choices and 2 microshift choices. I decided to stay with Shimano, but in the Shimano, one of the Shimano shifters is for an older version of the Alfine hub than the hub that I'm using, and so I went with the S7000. Now to confirm that I was getting the right shifter, I went onto the Shimano website, looked up the shifter, and based on the shifter, as I show circled in red, I'm getting an S7000 shifter. And as the arrow shows below, based on the Shimano documentation, that's the correct shifter for this Alfine hub. The next thing was the chain, and basically you have 2 choices. You can use a single speed chain, or you can use a regular 11-speed chain, which is what I'm going to use in this case. The single speed chain would work, but it would not give you as much flexibility going down in the future. So I decided to stay with a HG93 chain, which will give me much more flexibility going forward. Now you need to determine whether you need a chain tensioner. Basically, if you can move the axle back and forwards to get tension on the chain, you don't need a chain tensioner. As you can see from the picture of the dropouts here, I do not have that, so I need a chain tensioner. Once I decided I needed a chain tensioner, there were 2 options. One was a single speed chain tensioner, and the other was a chain tensioner that would work in a single speed application or would work in a front derailleur application. I decided on the one for the front derailleur application because it gives me more flexibility going forward. Now, this particular tensioner does have a limitation on the cogs you can use in the rear, but based on the ratio that I wanted to get with this bike, that limitation did not eliminate this tensioner, so I went with the S5000 tensioner. Now, to get the small parts and the gearing, you need to go into the manual. And in the dealer manual, on page 6, it says that you need to install the correct non-turn washers. Going further on page 26, it explains how to select the correct non-turn washers, and basically there are 5 choices, and based on the dropouts on the bike, that'll determine which washers you need. Now, in this particular bike, looking at these washers, I have a vertical dropout, and I need a blue and a green lock washer. Once you know the color of the non-turn washers, then you need to make sure you get the correct small parts kit. And in the small parts kit, the primary item that's in there, among some other parts, will be those washers and something called the cassette joint. Now, I was able to find the part number for the Alfine small parts set, at least part of the number, and the official number is SM-S7000-8. But that part number has 4 other letters at the end of it. The first 3 of those letters are zeros, and the last one is a number, and that number is needed to make sure you get the correct non-turn washers. Now, I was not able to find any Shimano documentation that specified exactly what that is, but from going through and looking on various vendor websites, this is what I believe the numbers are, those last 4 numbers for the various washers. The one that I need is it has the last 4 digits are 0001. That'll give you the vertical dropout with the non-turn washers that are blue and green. If you have other dropouts and you need other washers, you can see those identified here. But I would advise you to use some caution and maybe even verify with the vendor before you order the part. The next item is trying to decide the gearing or the cogs and the chain ring. In the manual on page 24, it tells you to look at the manual for the chain tensioner. When I pulled the manual for the chain tensioner, circled in red in this page is a chart, and when you look at that chart, it tells you that the chain rings or the cogs that you can use with this tensioner are limited to an 18, 19, or 20 cog. Also, the ratio that I wanted to use, the sprocket ratio, was 2, as I explained in the other video. And the BCD on the chain ring is 130. With a 130 BCD, it's unlikely you're going to find a chain ring that'll be smaller than 38 tooth. So basically, I have only for the front ring choices between a 38 to 40 tooth chain ring. So with those parameters, I decided to go with a 19 cog and a 38 chain ring. I feel like this will give me the most flexibility going forward in terms of changing the cog and the chain ring to get the gearing exactly like I want it after everything's completed on the bike. So that's how I chose the hub, the shifters, the chain, the tensioner, got the small parts kit correct, and got the cog and the chain ring. Well, there you have it, guys. That's how I made sure that I ordered the correct parts the first time. I hope I've given you something to think about, and I'll see you at the top.